Hello and welcome to ASUcast. Today we are once again talking all things MEBs. Yes, that's right, multi-enterprise bargaining. I'm Emma Hart, a new delegate at City of Melbourne, and in the studio today we have Tash Hawke, Branch Secretary of the Australian Services Union, Philippa Bulk, Lead Organiser, and Luke Scully, Long-Term Delegate and Bastion of Knowledge at City of Melbourne. Hello everyone, welcome.
Hi Emma.
Hi Emma.
So today we'll be doing some myth busting of common arguments councils are making against MEBs. First though, let's get an update of where the campaign is at. Luke, over to you.
So great first question. How is the campaign going? We've got to get 50% plus one of signatures at each council for them to be able to participate in an MEB. Where are we up to with that?
Thanks, Luke. So we have had literally thousands of signatures coming in from workers across the city. Massive effort from officials, delegates and others. So we've now got several councils that are getting very close to that 50% mark. The other really great thing, though, to see is all of the delegates and activists stepping up around this. So talking to workers and spreading the message across the industry.
And what about pushback? Has there been any pushback from councils around this so far?
I guess we're also seeing some really different responses from the employers, which probably does need to be called out. So we've got everywhere from the cops being called on one of our officials, blocking, officials' emails from coming into the organisation, lots of active efforts to try and, keep workers, reps or our officials outside of having contact with workers because I think they are scared about, the outcomes of this, messing around with delegates' rights, through to workplaces that are readily allowing ASU officials and delegates talk to workers across the workplace and really try and enhance the kind of outcome that we see from the petition. So it's a really mixed bag out there. I think probably people on the ground know who I'm talking about when I'm talking about some of those different workplaces. In an ideal world, we would say this is a level playing field. And we want to keep working to get as many signatures as we can.
So let's get into this myth busting of some of the arguments that our members at different councils have been hearing management making against being part of an MEB. So I'll kick off with myth number one. Having a shared agreement means pay and conditions will go backwards or you'll lose conditions.
This is a really important question, and we are hearing it being spread by employers in this industry as we progress the campaign. In respect to this, we can say definitively no. We are confident that we've assessed the risks in respect of this, and we are confident that because employers won't be able to put a dodgy deal out to vote without the endorsement of union members, we will be able to make sure that all current terms and conditions are improved, maintained, or otherwise improved. So there will be no reduction in terms and conditions across the industry or across the councils involved in the multi-employer bargain as a part of this campaign and strategy.
Mm-hmm. So even if, a council has a particular set of conditions that they've negotiated that are quite unique, even though there's a shared agreement, they won't be lost.
That's correct. So we are proposing to have a core agreement with the shared terms and conditions, and there are a lot of similar terms and conditions in local government agreements, but we are also proposing to have schedules for each council to maintain and preserve the existing terms and conditions that union members have fought long and hard for over the years, so that nothing will be going backwards under this mechanism.
All right, myth number one, busted. Luke?
Okay, time for myth number two to be busted then. And that is that MEB negotiations between all the councils will take longer than a single enterprise EBA, and it will take longer to get a pay rise and you won't get back pay.
Well, I asked the question, how long have some of these single enterprise agreements taken previously? Because seriously, we have seen them blow out 18 months and longer at times. It is true that we can't get an authorisation from the Fair Work Commission until your agreement expires, but we think the benefit is worth the risk of the bargaining process taking longer. And given that, as Philip has just covered, we control when the vote goes out. We also have the capacity for workers to take industrial action under these provisions, which means that we have to be very disciplined at the table, have a short, sharp negotiation, have a really tight log of claims, and members need to be ready to stand by their claims and take action if they need to. And we've seen more of that across the industry over the last few years than ever before.
So how long did the last EBA at the City of Melbourne take to negotiate, Luke?
I think it took about 2.5 years. And I've had to remind people of that because I've done 3 tours of duty with EBAs at City of Melbourne, and they sort of get longer each time, and it is not quick in any sense.
Right, yes. Okay, myth number 2, destroyed. Okay, myth number 3, councils simply can't afford a proper pay increase. The money just is not there.
Well, you can certainly look at that and go, there is some truth to councils having some sort of limit in terms of their ability to raise revenue. However, that is an artificial limit on their ability to raise revenue, which is known as the rate cap, but also the state government will be able to be brought to the table under the multi-employer bargaining strategy. So the biggest part of this campaign is to get the state government to pay attention to local government jobs and services and actually fund them properly. Yes, sure, every time we go to the bargaining table on a single enterprise agreement, we have this conversation about, the rate cap, we can't pay more. We're getting around that. We're saying, well, let's get the state government to the table to have a conversation about that rate cap, get all the councils together to harness the power of workers across the industry, which will direct the attention of the state government to the industry to say, you actually need to fund these council jobs and services, which are so essential for the community functioning. So councils also have decisions to make in terms of how they spend their budget. They are often making decisions to, implement new projects that cost a lot of money when they should be funding and paying their workers properly. We constantly see this. An example of this was last year at Ballarat Council, where they were diverting savings that they made due to vacancy rates, staff vacancy rates, to projects.
Yeah, that's right. And I think at the time we even tried to influence councillors' decision making, and they still opted. We had rallies, we had protected action going on. Members were really standing firm. It was very public, and lots of media. The councillors still decided to put that money back into resurfacing a hockey pitch, and I think it was like a mall redevelopment or something. Mm-hmm. Pretty shameful.
So some very worker unfriendly budget decisions there.
But again, going back to that is we want to get the state government to the table to have proper conversations about funding council jobs and services properly. And we will be able to do that through this scheme.
Yeah, so it's not just about negotiating better deals for people at council. It's about enabling this whole strategic approach, attacking the structure of what is keeping wages down for local government employees in Victoria, which is quite exciting. All right, myth number 3. Are we feeling busted? It is a little bit more complex there, but I feel like we've addressed the core issues.
Definitely busted.
All right, busted. It's great. All right, excellent. So that's some of the sort of main arguments we're hearing from employers against the MEBs that we've addressed. But now we have time for some more straightforward questions that members and people working in local government might want to know around MEBs. So, Luke, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. How will union members at each council have a voice at the table? How will we make sure that negotiations are fair?
That is a very good question. So, it's probably think about take your usual enterprise bargaining and multiply it. So usually during enterprise bargaining, you want to make sure we've got reps from all different areas across a workplace. This will be, we want to make sure that there are reps from all of the different workplaces at the big table that is negotiating those common logger claims items. We'll have to have communication mechanisms in place back in workplaces to make sure that, that information is flowing back, that members are consulted in the same way that we do when we usually bargain. And we are already trying to plan to bring together delegates who are going to be involved with this. So, very good time for me to do a reminder about some MEB delegate training that we have on the 18th of March. So, just a call out to delegates who might be listening, please enrol if you haven't already, because, we want to make sure that there's reps there.
Yes, very important to engage with the campaign, and we all just need to be pushing this. So, another question, and we kind of touched on this before around budget issues, but what happens if one of the councils who are involved in the MEB is poorer than the others and can't afford the pay increase? Or I guess another way to look at this could be, will the MEB address pay disparity between councils over time?
So again, we are engaging the state government on this. So we will be able to force them to come to the table. And by getting them to come to the table, it will kind of circumvent any council's particular budget. However, again, it does go back to the question of council making particular decisions and how they spend their budget. In terms of the pay disparity, in the initial agreement, there's not an intention to harmonise pay across the different councils. That would be a hugely complicated and time-consuming project. And whilst there will be conversations over the life of the agreement and into the future, we will certainly look at that. It won't be for the first agreement. However, there are councils with really low pay rates, one of those being Hobsons Bay City Council. We are looking at a way to create a floor, which would be the minimum standard for pay in the sector that we would be looking at incorporating into the agreement in a pay and classification structure. That would mean that any other employers, councils, contractors, etc., that we look at roping into this multi-enterprise bargaining agreement in the future, they would automatically, if they didn't already have pay rates above that floor, that would be the floor that they would be pinned to ensure that workers in the sector have fair and decent wages.
Super interesting. Great approach.
Another question people have been asking is, will this make me vulnerable? My role could be outsourced and I don't feel safe. Does MEB address job security?
I think this is one of those things that we often hear in single enterprise bargaining as it is. And we need to stand together against any of those sorts of tactics from employers. Some of this is to try and seek an outcome that would vary the rate cap or would vary other funding arrangements that really should protect in-house jobs. That's certainly something we continue to campaign on every day, that we need to have more secure in-house jobs in councils and not have profit-making ventures, making money off workers' backs.
100%.
Next Q, what happens if the employer comes to us during bargaining with a good deal, so an individual council, and we want to take it in the midst of MEB negotiations? So if it's just us, like one workplace, and our particular management offer us something really good, could we get out of the MEB agreement to say yes to that, and how would that look?
So with respect to that, the answer short form is there's ways to get out of it if the employer comes with a good enough deal. The decision makers in that respect would be the union members. This is not something that the ASU office would be deciding. It is about the union members in that particular workplace making a decision about what is best for them. And ultimately, in terms of what would be a win for those workers in terms of pay increases and terms and conditions of employment. Ultimately, if this campaign turns into a whole lot of really good pay increases for the local government industry, that is what this is about. It's not necessarily being wedded to a particular idea, although we think that the multi-enterprise bargaining is the best vehicle for delivering pay increases across the sector and improving the funding for council jobs and services more broadly. If there is a pay offer made in those sorts of circumstances or a deal that's offered, then there would be a conversation with union members about what they want to do in respect of that offer.
Mm-hmm. So it's more like a mechanism that enables greater solidarity and strength rather than like a particularly defined end goal.
And the other thing with that is that the employer won't be able to unilaterally withdraw. The authorisation lasts for 12 months after it's granted. And so, they can say, well, we have this offer, and then we would have a conversation with members. So it's not something that would just happen without the endorsement of union members, which again, why it's really important for workers in local government to join their union.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, another question that people have been asking is, what happens in an MEB environment if some councils agree to something in bargaining but other councils do not? How will that be handled?
Probably like same answer, slightly different spin. So I think this comes back to workers being ready to back one another in, and that delegate group that is sitting at the big table being ready to back one another in and feed that message back to each of their individual workplaces. So we don't want to leave people behind in this. I think it is a matter of saying that people are prepared to take action if needed to back the overall greater good and to be really lifting the standard across the industry. Like, we want to see local government to be a place where people want to come and work and they want to stay working in, and we're only going to achieve that by, greater solidarity and having that collective agreement with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
So we have nearly reached the end of today's ASUcast, but Luke, I just wanted to ask you, as an experienced delegate in the workplace, you mentioned you've been through 3 EBA negotiations now, single EBA negotiations. What are your hopes for this MEB process?
Well, my hopes are just for an alternative to what we've got in single enterprise bargaining agreement, because it's a badly broken system. And I was really pleased when the government brought in this change, because it was what we were asking for. We knew it was a broken system. Things are taking forever and to negotiate, and it wasn't getting better. And no one can agree on anything. And so this is it. Really, anything would be better than that, but I'm really optimistic. really hopeful. I know it's a brave new world for people, but sort of as someone who's been through it a number of times, I can guarantee that the system that we had was really badly broken. So I'm optimistic.
So worth giving it a go, a red hot go.
100%. 100%. I'm pumped.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for bringing your expertise to today's ASUcast. We've been speaking with Tash Walk, Branch Secretary of the Australian Services Union, Philippa Bork, Lead Organiser, and Luke Scully, who is a long-term delegate at City of Melbourne. We hope these conversations today have been useful for you and you can take these arguments into your workplace, bust some myths and put this stuff to use to get those petitions signed and enable all of the councils to participate in the MEB. If this is the first ASUcast you've listened to and you'd like more of a general overview of MEBs, check out our previous episode of ASUcast. That's on YouTube as well. And all importantly, for more information or to join the ASU, there has never been a better time to join your union. Visit asuvictas.com.au or Google Council Workers Need a Pay Rise. And if you like today's episode, why not pass it on to a colleague? Any final words, everyone?
Can't wait to see the power shift back to workers' hands.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay staunch.